Good evening, First Robotics community. My name is Sean Lim, and I'm the Director of District Implementation for First Robotics Canada. And I wanted to thank you for joining us for our fourth installment of the Ask the Experts webinar series. And today's topic is going to be finances and fundraising. So we have a great group of panelists with us who are going to go ahead and share their tips and tricks and best practices about finding sponsors, um, fundraising, and even once you've got all your money in your budget, how do you best optimize your budget to give yourself to give yourself the best chance to work with your limited amount of resources. I'm also going to take a little moment because your invoices for FRC teams in Ontario are going to be issued in about a week's time. And so I'll just show you what a sample invoice is going to look like, what the line items mean, and how you're going to go about paying it and what your different options are for that. And so, without further ado, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panelists. And tonight we have Gary Page, the lead mentor for FRC Team 2013, the Cybergnomes out of, I believe it's Stayner, Ontario. Gary, thanks for
It
being
is,
on the call
yeah.
with us. But Gary, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thanks, Sean. I've been a mentor with the Cybergnomes now for 5 years. I also mentor a rookie team this year for the first time, Team 6336. My involvement is mainly in outreach and sponsorship. The focus really on growing competitive robotics in Simcoe County itself. So we're really focused on starting some new teams up here.
Awesome. Glad to have you with us, Gary. Really appreciate it. And we also have with us Tibor Torrentali, who actually did join us as a Q&A guest at one of our last webinars. But Tibor is the lead teacher and mentor for Team 4946, the Alpha Dogs. And Tibor, glad to have you on board with us. And Tibor, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I helped start the team, where I was the founder for the team, and I run it with two other colleagues that are lead mentors as well. And we're entering our fourth year as Team 4946, and this year we're going to be supporting Louise Arbor, that I believe is in their third year, and Woodbridge College, and hopefully Tommy Douglas, I think of York region. And we're going to be helping them as rookie teams. So yeah, looking forward to this year and answer any questions this evening.
Awesome. Great to have you on board as well, Tibor. And
Thank
of
you.
course, we have with us Allison Smith, who is a team coordinator for FRC Team 772, the Saber Bites. And Allison, you're actually a grade 12 student and the head of public relations and communications for the team. Allison, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm in grade 12 and I've been on the team for 3 years working with mostly sponsorship and outreach events. So I help organize all that and put it all together.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Allison. And last but not least, we are joined by one of your colleagues, Angela B., also a team coordinator for FRC Team 772. And Angela, you're a grade 11 student and you're the team lead of the communications team. Angela, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yep, hi everyone, I'm Angela and I was elected co-team coordinator this year, and 2 years before that I was the communications section leader on Team 772. I've been on this team for 3 years now.
Great, glad to have you on board, Angela. And so we're going to need to get some of the more mechanical items off the schedule, but I'll try and get through this quickly. But FRC teams who are on this call, you need to know that your invoices from First Robotics Canada for this upcoming season will be sent to your lead mentors via email on November the 15th. The due date for payment for those invoices is going to be November the 30th, and we'll talk about the payment methods shortly. But what I would like to do is just to quickly show you what a sample invoice will look like. And so my apologies, I've just got to take a moment here and pull up my sample invoice. And here we go. And so It will come in an email. Right inside the email will be your invoice. So I've actually opened up my email program, Outlook, and I've just double-clicked on the email, and this is what it looks like. Now, the invoice may look slightly different for your team depending on what your financial situation is. But I'll just have you point out that the invoice number does appear on here, and you're going to need to use this invoice number when you're submitting payment to us, just so that we know what team your payment is coming from. So make sure you take note of that invoice number. The due dates are listed. And this is actually a sample for a rookie team. And you'll see for the line items, we have one section here for your charges. And a rookie registration cost is actually $8,500. However, for those of you who are rookies, you do know that there is an instant First Canada Rookie Grant that we do offer. And as stated, when we first brought you into the program, it is $2,000 and it is immediately applied against your registration costs. And so you'll see under the credit section, First Robotics or First Canada Rookie Grant, $2,000, and that will be subtracted from your amount. If you're a team that has registered for any additional district events, you'll see that we'll add the $1,300 Canadian cost to that under a line item here. And it's pretty straightforward. We'll take your charges, we'll subtract your credits, and this is your grand total owing. And for any teams who are wondering, do we charge HST for any of our costs? No, HST does not apply to any of the charges from First Robotics Canada. And so the grand total is the actual cost. And if you scroll down just to the bottom a little bit here, the preferred method of payment is by check, made payable to First Robotics Canada. And the address, if you're mailing it in, is up here in the top right-hand corner of the invoice to our P.O. Box address up in Pickering. Now, checks are not the only way to be able to pay for your invoice. If you click on this link, you'll also see that we do have a few other forms of payment that are available to you. And it'll give you a link on the First Robotics Canada website for the team registration. And under acceptable payment methods, there is, of course, check. But we do also accept e-transfers, electronic fund transfers, also known as EFTs. And you can contact Christine Bivic, our administrator here, for the EFT transfer numbers and the routing numbers. And last but not least, we have been hearing feedback that there are a good number of teams who would really like the ability to pay through credit card. I want to let you guys know that we are hard at work at working on a system. We are very, very close to being able to implement it, and it looks quite optimistic. And so my hope is that on November 15th, there will be an option here where you can just punch in your invoice number and hit pay, and right online to be able to pay by credit card should you choose to use that method. And so for our invoices, those are our three methods of payment. And our website does include the specifics for our payment information. And that's what I wanted to get through for the boring stuff right off the top of the webinar for our FRC teams who are going to be paying their bills shortly. But again, let's get to the interesting stuff. Now that we have this wealth of knowledge amongst our panelists, I'd love to have a conversation with you guys regarding sponsorships, first of all, because this is one of the most difficult and important tasks for any FRC team out there. You need to be able to fund your team, whether it's building your robot and paying for parts, or travel costs to be able to get you and your teams out to your competitions. And so every single one of your teams has a little bit of a story. I think you guys all have sponsors. Some of you operate under a model where you might have some really big sponsors who are like your big name key sponsors, or maybe some of you operate under just a whole bunch of little sponsors. But I'd love to pick all of your brains in terms of your teams. You know, who are your biggest sponsors if you choose to work under that model? And how did you get those sponsors if you've been around long enough to kind of know the stories behind them? But I'm going to swing this one over to, we'll go to Gary first at 2013, the Cybergnomes. But Gary, who are your biggest sponsors? And if you don't mind sharing with us, how did you get them?
So yeah, our biggest sponsors are mainly automation companies in the Barrie area, Protomax, Honda, of course, the local car manufacturer here as well. We actually got them by doing cold calls. We had our students go out in their team uniforms, and we printed off some flyers or information sheets that they could give the sponsors. And they basically just knocked on doors, asked to speak to managers or people in charge and sold their product to them. The benefit of this for us is that the students get public speaking experience, so they have to, they do have to present their case fairly well, and we don't expect all students to go out and do this right off joining the team. We'll send out rookies with veterans who've done this for years and years.
Awesome, Gary. So cold calls, that's a really interesting one. And we'll get into a little bit more detail in terms of how exactly you did those cold calls, because I think that's really important. Some people do actual physical telephone cold calls. Some people do cold call emails. It sounds like you did more of knocking on doors physically and in-person cold calls, but we'll delve into that in a little bit more detail when we talk about the specifics of the best techniques. But that's really interesting, Gary. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'd love to swing this one over to Allison on Team 772. Allison, who are your biggest sponsors, and if you happen to know the story or the stories, how did the Sabre Bites get them?
So our biggest sponsors, again, come from automotive companies like Ford, Chrysler, Riam, and we have Centerline as well. And they've actually come from parents. At the beginning of the year, we send our students home with sponsor packages that they can give to their parents, and from there, their parents can give them to owners of businesses, and we happen to come across those owners, and they were able to sponsor us, and they've been sponsoring us every year since.
Awesome. All right. So that's a pretty good technique, I would say. And you've been able to line up some of the big name sponsors, at least what traditionally people have thought of as big name sponsors with the automotive companies, Ford. And for those of you who don't know Centerline, they're a very large sponsor, very large operation. They actually sponsor First Robotics Canada as an entire organization as well. So I'm glad we really mentioned them. But let's swing this one over to Tibor. You guys have not been around quite as long as these other few teams, but I have a feeling that you've probably got pretty similar approaches. But Tibor, who are your biggest sponsors and how did you get them?
Yeah, we haven't been around as long as them, it's true, and I love both of the teams actually, both for how competitive they are and how polite the team members are. Both the Cybergnomes and 772 are fantastic teams. It's great whenever we're at an event with them. So yeah, in our first year, it was I'll try to make this brief because there's so much I want to cram in here, but in our first year, which I'm sure there's a lot of rookie teams that are listening right now, and they're waiting for the magical solution to, securing funds and money, we worked extremely hard at it. We created this really fantastic PowerPoint presentation, and we practiced presenting to corporations and whoever. And it was the same approach. It was cold calling, plus another thing that we did, our community is very unique in the sense that, well, unique to any communities that are not in the north. So in the north, if you're in a smaller community, you can reach out to certain sort of business clubs like the Rotary clubs, the Lions clubs, the Kinsmen clubs, and you can try to start there. Now, those clubs still exist in the urban areas as well, but that's where we started, and we sent an email. We cold called, and then we sent an email. And here's a little trick that I want to tell the rookie teams. Talk to your VPs and your principals and identify them in the email and have them copied on the email. It'll look really serious to whoever you're calling that you mean business, that it's not just a little email that you're sending out. That worked for us, and we got our foot in the door, and we raised quite a bit of money from that, from the actual clubs like the Lions, Rotary, Kinsmen, etc. Because a lot of the members of those clubs know other people that have businesses or are vice presidents or senior manager level important people at other corporations, and that led to smaller donations that didn't seem that small to us then, but a little $2,000 or $2,500 donation from a trucking company was quite substantial in our first year, and that's basically what we focused on in our first year, and we had quite a bit of success. We went to the World Championships that year, and it was what we found was all of the sponsors that sponsored us at the beginning of the season, when they found out we had to raise more money to go to the World Championships, they returned again and supported us again with more funding. So that's our story.
Amazing, and right off the bat, some great advice. Rotary Club, Kinsman Club. You would not be the first person to mention those exact types of societies and communities for almost purpose-built for this exact application. And there's a lot of teams who take advantage of that, and you should, because that's really what they're there for. So I'm glad you threw that one out there, because there's a lot of teams who I think are hopefully will pursue that. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so this is another question that I wanted to get into. We'll come back to the specifics and the nitty-gritty on how you approach those corporate sponsors. But before we get into that, there's a lot of teams who bend over backwards to do their own sort of internal fundraising by running fundraising events, whether they're like gala dinners or volleyball tournaments or selling food items or this and that. I'd love to know sort of from your teams, do you guys do fundraising events, and comparatively, how does that stack up against going out and getting sponsors? Because some teams have had a lot of success with it, some not so much, and they choose to focus on sponsors. Some people just are gangbusters at fundraising events and make huge amounts of money for them. And Angela, on 772, sort of where do you guys stand on this one? Do you guys do fundraising events? Do you feel they're pretty successful, or are you more of just like, well, we'll focus more on the corporate sponsors?
They are actually very successful. A lot of times you can't just rely on sponsors because they don't return year after year. So a lot of the times we do look out for fundraising opportunities. For example, we'd like to talk to restaurants and see if we can get them to sponsor us by hosting some sort of food-related event. We do car drives, that sort of thing. There's a lot of events that teams can do if they know where to look, and it's very helpful just to not rely on solely on sponsors, because sometimes you don't know when they could back out or drop out, and it's kind of unreliable sometimes.
All right, Angela, if you don't mind me asking, I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more detail on those two specific things that you mentioned. You mentioned trying to get a restaurant who might be able to do sort of a food-related event. My guess is that you would ask the restaurant to maybe sponsor you guys by donating the food or giving it to you at a discount. And then for the event, what does that event actually look like? Like, is there a theme around the event, or do you just call it a fundraiser or a gala or a dinner and just invite the community members in? But can you give us some, just kind of at a high level, what does that look like?
Yeah, a good example I think would be last year we did Buffalo Wild Wings. So we would print out tickets, and people would bring the tickets into Buffalo Wild Wings at a certain date in between certain time spans, and they would pay for food, and part of the profit comes to us. So we would not only be feeding people and making them happy, but also earning a little bit of money towards our team. And it's good. It makes you can attract a lot of people this way, and you get enough money, I guess, to at least fund a few things such as like materials that you need or stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So at the restaurant then, it's not like there's an event or any show or any presentations that you're doing when the people are there. People can just kind of go at their leisure within a time block and just have like a family meal, but as long as they have this ticket with them, just a part of the cost of that meal will go to your team. Is that how I'm envisioning it? And that's it?
It's pretty easy. You just call the restaurant and book a time with them, and a lot of places have this kind of fundraising event.
Very cool. That was not actually something I was aware of. It shows how much of a fundraising newbie I am, but that's a great one to share. And you said specifically Buffalo Wild Wings is one who you've partnered up with out in your neck of the woods. That's really great. And can I also ask about the car drive? What exactly does that look like? Because I'm not sure if I'm really familiar with what a car drive fundraiser looks like.
So last year we did one with Ford where they would bring a few test cars in, and we would have people drive them, and maybe it would be like $20 a drive, and they don't directly pay. It's sort of a free test drive, so the person would test drive a car from Ford, and Ford would give us around maybe $20 per test drive, and there is a maximum, but if we can reach the maximum, it's quite a lot of money.
That's really interesting, because I would totally do that. That's really cool.
Fundraising comes from weird places.
No, that's great. I'm really glad you were able to share that with us. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind touching base with some of the other teams. But Gary, back to you on 2013 fundraising events. Yes or no? How do you guys feel about them?
Definitely yes. They account for about a third of our sponsorship, or the money we generate from the community from sponsors. So definitely a valuable thing to do. The one benefit we find for fundraising events is that they do more than just get money for the team, is they also get information about what you're doing out to the community, so they increase community awareness. which is a great benefit. We have three. We do a whole bunch of different fundraising events, but I'll talk about three that we do. We have a spaghetti supper that we do, so sort of a gala dinner event with a silent auction, but we combine it with our robot reveal at the end of build. So it gives the community a chance to actually see what we've been doing for the 6 weeks and come out and see the robot and see it functioning and those things before we get into competition season. So that's a great one.
Awesome. Spaghetti dinner combined with your robot reveal, and I'd love to hear about the two others, Gary.
Yep. We have a toy maker. One of our mentors has a model airplane company, and so the students working with him designed a toy that we can sell. It's basically something that's been on the market for years, the useless box things where you flick a switch and it closes, opens up and turns the switch off. But we created it as a kit, so that kids can put it together, do some soldering and things like that, and so we sell the kits, and we get them out into hobby shops and toy shops and things around the area. So that's been a really successful one as well. So using the resources that every team has, unique resources to them. They have mentors who have businesses do this, that, or the other. So we've made use of one of our mentors who's a model builder. And the last thing we do is just this past year actually we started running summer camps, robotic summer camps, using the little VexIQ kits, and they've been really successful, both to raise awareness of the program in our community, to give summer jobs to some of the students on our team, and also to do outreach for kids, but also as a way to generate income for the team.
Very nice, Gary. Some really, really amazing fundraising ideas. This has been awesome. Tibor, I'm going to swing this one over to you because I think we've hit a whole bunch of home runs with a lot of these different ones. But on the Alpha Dogs, do you guys do any kind of specific fundraising events, or are you more just corporate sponsor focused?
We are more corporate sponsor now, and we are focused on that now. We did try to do a bit of fundraising in our community in the first and second year, and this doesn't mean that community fundraising won't go well for you, but it wasn't the greatest for us. We generated a very small amount of funds, and I don't know if this has anything to do with the demographic of our area or preference of what they'd rather do, but we spent a lot of time on a couple of fundraisers at some major, I won't name the restaurants, major franchisees, and they were fantastic, they were very helpful and everything, but at the end of the day, we fundraised a very small amount of money. So for us, it wasn't, any money is positive, but it was a lot of effort for a smaller gain than we expected. So we really worked on trying to establish relations with the companies in the area, because it's really hard to convince them as to why they should sponsor you. So they really don't get too much back other than the outreach on their part. They can boast about their community outreach, and we've really honed our craft into trying to deliver a very strong business message to them that once we sign on together, we want to continue this for forever, as long as you are a company. This attitude has kind of helped us line up a very strong sponsor in Husky Injection Molding Systems this year. So, but yeah, the smaller fundraisers, we had a little bit of maybe we didn't craft it well enough. And at the school, our actual policy is there's a number of different rules we have to go to in order to raise funds within the school. So it became a bit of a negative point for us. There's certain number of clubs that are allowed to raise funds at the beginning of the year, and we were excluded. So, but anyways, yeah, that's been our experience with it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to share that because, I'll point out an interesting difference between the teams which are on this call, but the Cybergnomes 2013, you guys are up in Barrie. 772, you guys are out in the Windsor, Essex area. And then the Alpha Dogs, Tibor, you're in the Greater Toronto area, correct?
We're just north, but so we're in Bolton, in the Caledon area. So we're quite a bit far north. I'm in Toronto, but the team is way up in Bolton, so I drive about an hour and 10 to get there. But it is definitely north of 7. So.
Okay. And sometimes the demographics do play a big factor in terms of what fundraising events are going to go well versus not. But I'm hoping people on this call, it's not all, a silver bullet where we're going to just suggest fundraising events which are going to go gangbusters on you. But sometimes, knowing what doesn't work is just as important as knowing what does work. So I really appreciate that, Tibor, in terms of sharing your experience on that one. But I'm also glad to hear that the restaurant route seemed to have worked really well for the Saber Bites as well. So a lot of it's going to be an interesting read. So for some teams, it sounds like it's going to work out really well. For others, maybe not so much. But I'd like to move on to the next one because surprisingly, we've really only got 5 minutes left for our formal aspect. But you know what? We'll maybe combine this one with these two questions together, which is, let's go back to that nitty-gritty detail on going out and getting those sponsors. And let's just say all of you are now members of rookie teams. So you have an opportunity to start from scratch and do this all over again, learning from all the mistakes that you've made running the teams that you're at. But if you were to start a rookie team today and you needed to go out and get your corporate sponsors, what are the things that you're going to do? And maybe what are some of the things that you might do differently compared to what you've done now if you had to do this all over again? And I'll swing this one actually back to Allison, 772. Let's just say you're getting off the ground again. Allison, what would your approach be? You've got limited time, limited resources. What are your killer things to go and get corporate sponsors?
First, I would start with local businesses in the area, and that helps kind of build up what robotics is, because most people don't know what it is. And then I would have students go to higher up businesses and corporate sponsors and trying to get those people. And it kind of builds the community together and get people interested in all that. And then from there, I would work with the students to try to host fundraisers that everyone can attend, and it kind of just brings them together. Because I've noticed in our years of fundraising, that's been a big thing, is keeping people out first and helping them do for children's futures. I would also encourage the team to work year-round, because our fundraising doesn't stop just at the end of the robotics year. It continues through the summer, through the fall. It's the best to keep it year, because you do get those connections with those businesses.
Awesome. I'll swing this one over to Gary. Gary, rookie team, you're starting from scratch, and in many ways you are, because you are now mentoring the Junior Optimist Club. So what are your high value, high yield best things for up and coming team with limited time, limited resources? What are your go-to things to get corporate sponsors?
I'm going to echo something that Tibor said earlier, reaching out to the service groups, so Rotary clubs, Optimist clubs, the Legion, Kinsmen and Lions. They're all very passionate about youth projects, and they'll have your team come in to do a presentation at one of their meetings, and generally they'll sponsor you. We get quite a large amount of money from the different service groups in our area. And the other is municipalities. A lot of, at least in more rural areas of Ontario, a lot of municipalities have grant money available for youth programming. So reaching out to different municipalities, to your municipality or your county or whatever level of government is there for you, is a great way to start as well. But again, if it comes to cold calling sponsors, I think professionalism is the big thing, and I think, again, Tibor mentioned that they do a very professional presentation to their sponsors. Your printed material should look really professional. You should be wearing your team uniforms. Your students should be wearing their team uniforms. Practice your pitch to them over and over again so that it comes out clear and intelligent and hits all the points that you want to hit.
Very nice, Gary. And Tibor, I'm going to give you the last word on this question. Rookie team, limited time, resources. Not too long ago for you when you were in that exact same situation, but what are your best high yield plans of attack for getting those corporate sponsors?
Okay, so, and I'll try to make this really quick because I know we're near the end. I had a really good word of advice from Miss Fioroni from Team 610 after our first year as we were leading the World Championships, and she said, you guys have put in such a strong effort. Word of advice: you have to try to keep the interest level and the hype up between your students, your team members, So that means trying to continue it after the season is over, because the season really doesn't end for robotics. You can go on all throughout the summer. And also keep that connection with your sponsors. And that means if they have barbecue events in the summer or something, or some special, day that they have at their workplace, go there. Just go there and show that support. Even if there's 3 of your team members that will go there to a car dealership that's having a special day where they give away something, have your team member show up. Have your team member show up there so that they know that you remembered them and you're thanking them. That connection is really, really important. And I know this is a fact because I spoke to a team that came to see us compete recently at the Fall Fiesta a couple of weeks ago. And I'm not going to identify the team, but the team member was a little bit down because the interest level had kind of died off. And I kind of asked a few questions why. And I think, it would be wise after this season to keep this rolling as something that is, instilled in your learning community and with your sponsors. So that's the advice I would give to rookie teams. Plan for your second year in your first.
Very good. Well, thanks very much, Tibor. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. It's 8:01, so technically we're at the end of our webinar. And so I would like to actually just cover a final few slides here for you guys, because for the teams which are listening in, who are still trying to wrap up their finances and maybe look for some final few sponsorship or grant opportunities, I wanted to bring to your attention TD Bank. They have actually offered 6 grants to Canadian FRC teams, each worth $2,500. And these grants are geared towards the promotion of girls in STEM. And so for this grant, we've posted the information up on our website, and the requirements are for you to produce a short video, anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And the video, the contents are either to tell us how FIRST Robotics has positively impacted one or more female members, mentors, or alumni of your team, or you could do one or the other or both, to tell us how a $2,500 grant from TD would benefit the female members on your team. And so the submission instructions are all here, the requirements. The judging period is from December 1st to the 14th, and so the due date is on the 30th of November, so you still have a fair amount of time to do this. But that is a great opportunity for you guys to essentially earn a $2,500 grant/sponsorship from TD Bank. So definitely one that I wanted you guys to be aware of. On top of that, First headquarters down in the United States, on their website, they actually do have an FRC grants portion of their website where they do list any grants that they get, which they can then relay on to participating teams. There's usually an application process as well. It gets constantly updated, and so right now it's a little bit light. They've mentioned the rookie grants, which pretty much all of our rookies have applied for, which you're already aware of. But that has closed. There are some NASA grants which unfortunately are not available for Canadian teams, and those have closed. But occasionally it's a good idea just to drop by this page, just to see if anything has come up, because sometimes there are ones, particularly around this time of year, where they do come up, particularly for teams which are in extenuating circumstances or are really at that stage where they don't know whether they can compete this year or not because they are short just a certain amount of money, or some kind of an emergency has come up. Speaking of emergencies, now what I do want everyone in the community to know is that First Robotics Canada, ultimately, we're here to help you. We want you to compete. Pretty much everyone on staff has been in your position, leading an FRC team, trying to get the budget to work. And if you've hit some kind of an extenuating circumstance or there's been some kind of an unexpected event, at the very least, we would like for you guys to let us know. We can't make any promises for you, but sometimes there are opportunities that come up. Sometimes a sponsor approaches us and sort of says, hey, we would like some sponsorship money to go directly to a team in need. And sometimes, we're able to actually help you guys make a match. There are 2 of us who are charged with, being those liaisons for you. John Hobbins, who's the director of FRC. If you are a team that's west of Highway 400 here in Toronto, or southwest of Ontario, please feel free to contact him and sort of state your case and let him know what's going on with your team and what kind of challenges you're running into. And east of Highway 400 in Toronto, and also for the area just north of Toronto, going all the way up into, Hudson's Bay, I suppose, you can contact me at sean.lim@firstroboticscanada.org. And once again, state your case. If any opportunities comes up, we'll be sure to try our best to try and connect you guys up. But seeing that, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us. We really appreciate your time and your expertise. This marks the official end of the webinar. And actually from this point forward, we do just a little bit of an informal session where we'll take questions from the audience. So panelists, if you're able to stick around and take some questions, please, you're more than welcome to. And if not, you're absolutely free to go. And thank you so much for your time, everyone, and really appreciate it. Allison, Angela, Gary, Tibor, thanks again. Have yourselves a great night.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
All right.
I can stick around too.
You're able to stick around? Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, Paul, do we actually have any questions lined up?
We have no questions lined up, Sean.
We have no questions lined up. Okay, so this might actually be a pretty straightforward one. Seeing how there are no questions then, I actually have some questions for you that we ran out of time on, and we didn't really get around to. And so this is an interesting one. So, okay, let's say you've got your budgets mostly in order. You've got your money that you can spend. The other side of the coin now is how do you sort of optimize the money that you do have? You obviously don't want to waste it, but I think, a lot of teams have found some really clever ways to save money here and there as they're going about their business. Yeah, I'll swing this one to I guess, Angela, if you don't mind. Is this something that you guys have run into? Have there been some interesting opportunities at 772 where you've been able to save some cash?
At the moment, I'm still thinking. There's a lot of times where just mostly sponsors that help us save cash. Just relocating old sponsors, reaching out, opportunities sometimes. A lot of sponsors donate items and goods instead of actual money. So, for example, Sunderline sometimes donates cars for us for transportation, so we don't have to charter a bus, which is really helpful. Other stuff like that, just mostly sponsors, I guess.
So some just interesting sponsor asks, not necessarily for money, but for services that you're going to need to pay for anyways. So that's a really good one. I think, yeah, if you have a sponsor who has them, and it's surprising that a lot of sponsors do, you just kind of have to ask for them. Allison, anything in your travels on 772 that come to mind that Angela didn't touch upon?
Sunderland also helps us with spare parts for our robots. They also do our water jets. They cut all our parts for us, and that helps a lot as far as materials that we need to spend more money on. So they provide us with help and mentorships like that. So it's not always money that you need to be spending, but people that are able to help you with tasks you have to accomplish.
Awesome. Gary, how about on your side? Any clever ways that you've been able to save a few dollars?
There's a few different ways that we've come up with. We rely on carpooling of parents driving students to competitions. So as they said about 772, they don't have to rely on a bus or pay for a bus. Saving up hotel points. We spend a lot of money on hotels year after year, and just by sticking with the same hotel chains, we can collect the points and use those points to get rooms down the line. And then the last thing was a few years ago, there was a company in Ontario selling batteries, and if you ordered a large number of batteries, you got a significant discount. So teaming up with another team who needed to order things in bulk, like batteries, you can save a fair amount of money.
Very nice. So bulk orders with batteries, pooling with some other teams. Yeah, that's one that has been popular in the past as well.
John,
awesome.
we do have a question now from Team 6513, John Gaddy, the lead mentor from Woodbridge College. He says, I had a question regarding the restaurant fundraising event that was mentioned. Was the donation an amount, was the donation amount a percentage amount of the evening or a set dollar amount?
Allison and Angela, could I could I get you guys maybe to shed a little bit of light on the details behind that?
Sure. Allison, you can go first. I will answer.
Okay, so from the sales that everyone got from their receipt, we took 15% of that bill, and that went towards us. And we also went into the restaurant, and we had a couple door prizes and things like that. So they were able to buy tickets and put money towards that as well.
Awesome. So 15%. That's with enough traffic, you could make a pretty penny on that one. That's really interesting. Angela, did Allison miss anything on that one, or does that pretty much cover it?
It's pretty much it. I mean, there's one that we're about to do this year with Applebee's, and it's not really percent, it's more like amount. So we get a certain dollar amount profit from everything sold. So we can set the ticket price to whatever we want. But yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, but that one is a fixed amount per ticket, so every person who buys a ticket, you're pretty much just going to get a certain amount of money from that. It's not a percentage of what they order.
No, not percentage. So we have to pay Applebee's a certain amount. But then the rest of the profit is ours. So we just set an amount for the tickets.
Okay, so you set an amount for the tickets, and then for every ticket sold, there's sort of a profit to that you guys get. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully, John, that answers your question. It sounds like there's kind of different ways to work at it, but it does all seem to be, either percentage of the amount or a fixed amount per ticket. But still, two really interesting models from two different restaurants. Learn something new every day. That's not one that I'd even considered as a fundraiser. Saving money. Sorry, I didn't get to hear from Tibor, I believe. Tibor, was there anything in your travels running this whole FRC team business that involves saving money? Care to enlighten us?
I'll add in here because it will be something that'll happen to a rookie team or your first year. You are focused and so concentrating. You're going to concentrate so much on understanding the game, figuring out what's going to happen in January, that you will forget about the food. You will forget about what you're going to do for team meetings that extend later, past 7 o'clock, and this happened to the Alpha Dogs, and it ended up being, we're just going to order a couple of pizzas. We're going to get some more pizzas. We're going to get pizzas again. And in the end, you start to switch. You go to a different vendor, like Subway sandwiches or something, but it added up to a crazy amount. Now, there is a caveat here that in our first year, we put in a tremendous amount of hours because we made it, it was our intention to go out there to not seem and play and compete like a first-year team in all levels, including our business plan and everything. So we put in an amount of time that I would not recommend to any rookie team again. So we ended up spending way too much money on food. So what we did in the end, in our second year, was we put the onus on the students to try to coerce their parents into making pots of chili or bringing by sandwiches, because 20 or 30 bucks can go a much longer way if you use that to buy all the food stuff, so then prepare the food, rather than spending $100 on pizzas that will only feed maybe 15 or 20 individuals. That's very simple advice, but I say that out of experience because that's what happened to us.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that one because my former team, Team 188, I was a student on that team, but in terms of feeding the team, always a budget item that kind of catches a lot of teams blindsided a little bit, because especially if you're staying late a lot of nights and you're encroaching on that dinner period, it's nice to be able to feed the kids and the rest of the team, but not every team has the resources to do it financially. 188 actually made it a requirement where if you're going to be a member on the team, they had a food sign-up calendar where you had to sign up for days, and basically the expectation was that you/your parents, hopefully the combination of you, would prepare a team meal. And the tough part there is setting the expectations, because if you obligate your parents to do that, sometimes they might feel they really have to go above and beyond. But no, the truth is even if it was really, really simple, I mean, there were some who just boiled up some hot dogs and brought some buns and some condiments, and you have a hot dog dinner. It's better. It was definitely good enough, and it sure beat pizza. But on 188, for those of you who know the team, there's a very strong South Asian representation there, and so we would just have a lot of really really great food day in and day out, and it wasn't particularly expensive, but they were just home cooked meals, but just more labors of love and effort from the parents as opposed to resource. And what's really interesting, depending on your demographics, and we touched upon this, when we looked at all the teams and where they're located, depending on where you are, sometimes parents are in a situation where they can give, the love of labor more so than they can give financially. And you'd be surprised that they'd be happy to do it just so long as you ask. I'll share a little bit in terms of saving costs, but one of the best ways I've saved costs on pretty much all of my teams, and so we're talking like 188, 1310, and 610, where demographically very, very different students and families, and even their financial situations. But we were always looking for ways to save costs, particularly when it came to travel. If you need to board a bus and have hotel rooms, to travel anywhere for any of your competitions, splitting buses is a great way, because if you're only a team of 20, 30 students, you've got half a bus. Splitting the cost with another team, always huge, and being able to pull those resources that way. And yeah, a lot of it is also just being in touch with other mentors, having a really great Rolodex for if you're sourcing parts. It's funny because in Canada, sometimes we have a harder time sourcing your parts than the teams down in the States. And the difference in knowing a really good source for a particular type of part versus not a not so great one where you have to order it down in the States, you'd be surprised just how much you can save just by knowing where to get stuff. And so in a previous webinar, I showed the Canadian Part Suppliers website on the First Robotics Canada website, and it's right at the very bottom here. This has been a nice little repository for us there. And even outside of buying parts, this one's going to sound really crazy, but if you, in that Rolodex, have a good relationship with some of the older teams, the veteran teams, they'll have stockpiled a whole ton of parts over who knows how long those teams have been running for, and no team uses every single one of their stockpiled parts on their robot that year. There's a lot of parts which just sit there, totally unused. And sometimes all it is just a quick ask to say, hey, are you using this part on your robot this year? And there's a good chance that, a veteran team will say, no, you can borrow it, you can have it, you can do whatever. And I know I've saved probably thousands of dollars in parts through, maybe even within a single season where, a team would just be like, here, just borrow it. We'll get it back for next year. And you'd be amazed just how much you can save just with a single phone call to another mentor. All right. I think we're just about at the end of our webinar here. Paul, I don't believe there's any other questions coming in.
No, that's right, Sean.
All right. And so panelists, unless you guys have anything else to add, I guess speak now or forever hold your peace. I'll give you a few seconds to pipe up if there is.
Yeah, I just want to say hopefully I'll see 2013 and 772 at the Barrie competition, the one up at the college up there, and I look forward to playing with you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, and
We'll be at Barrie, but we'll think of you.
But one last thank you to all the panelists who are on the call tonight: Allison Smith, Angela B., Gary Page, Tibor Tarantali. Really appreciate it. And I think we got a lot of really great information, tips and tricks out to the teams on how to raise those funds, and also how to maximize those funds once they're able to get them. And so hopefully there's a lot of teams out there who will be in better financial shape as a result. But thanks again for your time, and have yourselves a great evening. Take care, folks.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.